comes, you would have heard of the SADC summit in a couple of days ago. Did the question of the DRC serve there? Did the question of Cabo Delgado serve there? But also the immigration question, the migrants question. Is SADC discussing the big problems of migration in and around the region? And finally, the Western Cape violence, 63 children murdered in a space of 5 months in the Western Cape, specifically in the Cape Flats. We speak to Dr. Robert McDonald, Western Cape Social Development, HOD. That's the show today, Bantwana Benkosi. Let the Pan-Africanists gather as we try and understand the place of Africa in relation to conflict and stability, but also the place of South Africa in what looks like a changing global environment. As I said, we're speaking to Ronald Lamola himself, Minister of International Relations. But first, what do you have in mind? 0861987000. Our studio line in relation to the WhatsApp. You can send your WhatsApp voice notes, particularly if Apo Ukoyo Dr Ndlozi, the network is not so strong. 0833037093. Send through your voice notes. This is Power Talk. And what do you have in mind? What do you want to contribute to the public discourse this morning? What are your questions? What is driving your imagination this morning? What do you want to put in the circulation of ideas? 0861987000 is our studio line. Call us and let's hear your views. As I said, we are broadcasting live from the Africa Peace and Security Dialogue held here in Magaliesburg with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. And we're looking forward to a heavy program about peace and stability, specifically in the Southern African region. But first, Nangu Kaifas Seminya, Kasefila Sahayliena. Yesterday we played Sefila, composed by Jonas Kwangwa. Today, Bommega Ofela Batswang, Ba Lo Rapela, Ereke Ba Fele Hetse, Kasefila Kisena, Santate Kaifas Seminya.
Emandulo leyo mihla abantu babejabulela izingane eziningi futhi bezixhayisa ngazo. Empa monna yenwa une adula ka pelo e bohloko a khutsafetse.
Kodwa le ndoda yayihlala ngenhliziyo ebuhlungu nomoya ophansi.
Ka hobane bana ba sa utlwane.
Ngenxa yokuba abantwana bakhe bayi.
Balele hufa ba monelana.
Banelunya bemonelana.
Ba lwantshana mehla yena.
Ungena kuthula emzini wakhe.
Kathileleng ngaya sefweng.
Ngelinye ilanga wahamba waya ehlathini.
Afitla roba maka.
Khayelitsha, Misha Spilling everywhere. And the government landed in Cape Town and they asked Barnetto, say, I don't drive that case. You know, even the Google remove Butcher Square. And if you land in Cape Town, you're not gonna find Butcher Square. The area is a dangerous zone. It's a red zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope one day you will bring the general of Western Cape Police. You know, I got a lot of questions I want to ask him. I hope one day you must do that, because thank you for you to bring the H2. But to me, the man is not competent enough. But to me, the man is not competent enough, because you need these people for the South African Police Service. Thank you, Doc.
Thanks. That's Southern Bay. Indeed, I mean, how do we diagnose this problem of the Cape Flats? Because it seems to me it might not just be a question you resolve merely on the basis of police deployment and security. It looks like it is very much embedded in the culture of raising human beings, of raising children, in the culture of being men, of being a community. I don't know, but indeed, as Temba says, we've got the HOD there in the Western Cape that will be briefing us from the Social Development Department. 0861987000. If you've just joined us, we are taking your calls. You can also send through your voice notes on 0833037093. Let's go to Makeshani in Diepkloof. Welcome to Power Talk.
Dokotela.
Khamba kanjani?
Akuyazomeka dokotela man, kodwa man akukho mnandi dokotela. Mina dokotela ngizalelwa la eSoweto. Ngiyakhumbula nge-4 zaka-August 1976. Sasuka la eSoweto simashela edrobheni. Sasuka elokishini eSoweto iya edrobheni. Kwathintulwa abantu abaningi bafa, abanye balimala, abanye baqhwalile namhlanje. Kodwa nyamangala mina indaba yaka August 4 1976 akukhulunywa, kugcina nendaba yaka J16. Kuza kanjani ngoba manje mina into zala eCountry mina ziyangimangaka. For an example, uzele iwatnene SSA manager ye-Orlando Pirates yathi maku-implementwa i-Group Areas Act kuthiwa i-Orlando Pirates kumele idirejiste in fact bonke ama-team mase i-Group Areas Act ku-sport kwathiwa wonke kumele adirejiste amakhaladi for amathimini wabodaki and then nabodaki babadirejiste emathimini wamakhaladi u-iwatnene wayala ukuyenza lento leyo until i-Orlando Pirates bayi-expela ebholweni le-professional. Zonke lezo zinto azikhulunywe mina ukuthi kanti e-South Africa abobani ekumele basitshele ezinye izinto ezibizwe njengale yabo Tiny Rollins nabo Cambo eLondon. uMandela waziwanika uTiny asazi ukuthi wayenikelwane uTiny Rollins.
Did you say tiny or tenny?
Roland
Chazele phela.
Ya uRoland Tiny phela ngiyitshela ukuthi mina njengabantu abaphuma kwe-ANC Dr ngiyabaza bo uRoland Tiny Rollins angithi kwagcina kuze kukhishwa oThemisini Makiwane lapha nabeqoso lapha kwe-ANC bagcina bemazasinikela le eTranskei. uRoland Tiny Rollins angithi kwabuye iCEO yeLondro ilondro lesibizwa ukuthi loan mean manje khona manje. Bekuye iCEO yakhona le eZimbabwe nala eSouth Africa and ngapha uTiny Rollins bekumngani wabo John Foster azala nabambola same time awumngaka waka Oliver Tambo and the late Nelson Mandela 1998 Rollins bekuyi friend yamabhunu la eSouth Africa.
Okay, thanks very much Mkheshane. Mkheshane there in deep clue. Tsepo Kopitori. Welcome to Power Talk.
My brother.
Yes, sir.
You know, my brother, and I'm not trying to advocate for anarchy, but let me tell you the honest truth. In the township where there used to be criminality all over the place, and it was out of order, the public or the community in that area, at some stage, went to the criminals and beat the hell out of them. Sometimes you don't have to kill them, but you need to have this thing of Mpagat. And suddenly, it was know that this is not place to play because it's beyond the police. When it's beyond the police, actual people to deal with it. I can tell you this thing will fix itself.
So, Tsepo, you're advocating for mob justice. That's against the law.
Look, I don't know if it's against the law because
it is against. It's called the community take to its hands.
I'm telling you, brother, continue with the police. You're going to talk about too much. You know, if it's many crimes here and there, the police criminal, people are killing each other, it's beyond the police. It's the people of that area to deal with it. And I can tell you where they've dealt, people are walking freely in peace, no problem. Criminals know this area here is a no-go zone. If you want to do criminality, that's not your option. Elsewhere, not here. If they beat you up, I'm telling you, it fixes itself. I'll make an example of one. And for them, we say it's legal. I'm telling you, you're going to talk about this for the next 10 years, 20 years from now. Here is beyond the police. Police are not made to deal with the entire citizenry, wider criminality. They're meant to deal with bits and pieces here. The criminality here, it's not the whole as a criminal. So you need the community in such a case to actually deal with it themselves.
But can the community do it in any other way, for instance, Tepo, without resorting to capital punishment and the form of violence you are saying? Because that leaves you with a situation as well. I mean, what if what they are doing results in the death of an innocent person? That's the problem with a community action, isn't it? Sometimes you are going to pick up people that don't have anything to do with criminality. They are just suspects. That's the problem with that type of action, is that half the time you end up killing people that are not criminals or people that have not had an ear for somebody to hear their side of the story.
No, it's all about the message. Sometimes you pick up the wrong one. It's not about who you picked up, it's about the message.
So even if you beat the hell out of the wrong one, that's still fine according to you.
It's sending the message. Send the message.
It's important, no?
Do that, my brother. Good luck. You're going to come back 10 years later to talk about this topic. You can do that. Do that.
That's Tebo there in advocating for mob justice. I don't know that we can support that one, Bandana, because it's 9:30 here on Power Talk. Let's take the headlines. We continue taking your calls, obviously, right after this. But let's take the headlines with Nyakalo Defu.
Thanks, Mbuyisen. Good morning and news making headlines at this hour. A parliamentary joint oversight meeting is underway in Randburg to address the concerns raised about Gauteng municipalities' audit outcomes for the 2023-2024 financial year. The meeting is being attended by some Gauteng MECs and Premier Panyaza Lesufi. The Auditor General report raised concerns about a regression in the financial performance of municipalities in the province. Chairperson of the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Committee, Zweli Mkhize, says the findings of the Auditor General necessitated today's meeting.
That the audit outcomes were a source of concern, where there was no indication of improvement and there was a fear that these may regress unless some effort is made to ensure that there's a change of culture, to strengthen accountability and consequence management, to stop the culture of impunity that seems to be associated with transgressions that are picked up in the audit reports.
In other news, at least 106 vehicles have been issued discontinue notices for being unfit for road use, while 78 vehicles were impounded for non-compliance with traffic laws in Gauteng over the past month. This follows the Department of Transport intensified efforts to improve road safety through a clampdown on unroadworthy vehicles and reckless driving. Speaking on Power Breakfast, MEC for Transport Kidiboni Dialetlabela noted that non-compliance has been a long-standing issue, particularly within the public transport sector.
We have a huge number of public transport operating illegally. Illegally meaning not compliant with the laws of this country. Either the driver does not have a PDP or the vehicle is not properly licensed. And most of the vehicles impounded is either because of unroadworthiness as per our laws. Secondly, the ones that are impounded are the ones that cannot even prove that they have applied for operating licenses.
Ndlandla Sihume will have more on these and other stories at 10.
Power traffic. A very good morning to you. Let's check out what's happening in your roads. Albertina Sisulu Road eastbound in Bedford View is still experiencing a lot of pressure this morning. Delays are just under 20 minutes. They're from the Eastgate Shopping Centre heading towards the Kadulis interchange. Diversions from that route are also causing delays as you're traveling on Boeing Road northbound. You can expect that pressure just after you pass the Johnson Road intersection as you're traveling on Sivan Road. If you're on the R24 westbound, you can also expect some congestion from Edenvale Road approaching the Kalulis interchange. The N3 northbound is very slow at the moment. Delays are from Modderfontein Road clearing just after the Marlborough Drive exit. That pressure is at just under 15 minutes at the moment. Arkwright Avenue westbound as you are getting out of Wynberg is also backed up between Louis Botha Avenue as well as the M1 highway. If you are traveling on South Road westbound in Morningside, there's queuing traffic between Bowling Avenue and the Morning View Shopping Centre. And lastly, if you are traveling on Malibongwe Drive, there's some congestion to expect that's in both directions approaching the Bel Airs Drive intersection. And remember, if you come across any further traffic incidents, tweet at Power987 Traffic. For Power Traffic, I'm Leboham Pukela. Power Traffic.
Power Business with Tahila Niselo.
Africa's truly at the heart of mobile payments globally, miles ahead of other continents. And we speak now to Ntabiseng Mohale, who's the head of domestic payments at Standard Bank's Corporate Investment Bank. What are some of the risks, though, about this rapid advance?
The payments infrastructure in the continent is not yet fully inclusive, and we've seen that in terms of accessibility and affordability, we're not there where we need to be. The trust is required. With a bank, when you put your money in there, you trust that nobody will run away with your money.
Yeah.
I think from a mobile money account, it's
at least in South Africa, there's been runs on banks in other parts of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
Power Business, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m.
So many business trends, immersive technologies, operational efficiencies, digital transformation. But how do you go about implementing them? MTN Business is here to help you take your business into the future. From connectivity to cutting-edge ICT services, including collaboration tools, cloud storage, cybersecurity, and IoT, we'll help you create and implement the digital solution your business needs to grow. Visit mtnbusiness.co.za. Today we make moves. MTN.
Catch Power Sports Extra this Friday with Baring Batu Gorjas from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Proudly sponsored by F&B Private Banking. Join us for an in-depth look at the world of sports with analysis, opinions, and exclusive interviews. F&B Private Banking knows you have passions beyond just numbers and is committed to helping you achieve your personal and financial goals. For more details, just visit the F&B website or download the app. Don't miss Power Sports Extra every Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. Brought to you by F&B Private Banking. First National Bank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and credit provider.
Power traffic, getting you to work and home.
N1 northbound as you are traveling towards Pretoria.
There are roadworks with lane restrictions ahead of.
Be on the move with reliable and up-to-the-minute traffic updates every half hour.
Kempton Park on the R21 southbound, there's an accident ahead.
If you're traveling on Paul Kruger Street South as you're approaching the Tshwane CBD.
7 traffic.
And remember, if you come across any further traffic incidents,
connect with us on Exit Power 987.
Talking with Dr Ndlozi, where your voice is heard and opinion matters.
0861987000. We're taking calls here on Power Talk, and you can also send your voice notes on 083-303-7093. We are still here in Magaliesburg, broadcasting live from the African Peace and Security Dialogue hosted by the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. We will be speaking later on with the Minister of International Relations, Ndade Ronald Lamola. Make sure you get tuned to hear that conversation. But for now, what do you have in mind, Bantwana Benkosi? Let's take Kudzo in Tembisa. Welcome to Power Talk, Chief.
Hello, Doctor. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Thanks, Commissar. Commissar, I'm asking myself, in our country, we have these driving apps or the navigation apps that can tell you if there's police ahead, there's roadblock ahead, there's camera ahead. Why is our country allowing such apps to be available on our phones in the country? Because it's going to be difficult for police driving because they'll know that there's police ahead, make a U-turn. How is our country allowing such a lawlessness?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Kudzo. Very interesting, because it means that the apps are assisting criminals in a sense, because obviously if there is a roadblock and you are in a hurry to an appointment that is not criminal, then the app is useful. You know what I mean? You take a different route, but criminals also take advantage of that.
Yes, that's so. Yeah, so I'm asking myself, did they first look at it, or it just got allowed to be in the country? Because in most of the things when we're studying at school, they will tell you to look at disadvantages and advantages of whatever that you want to do. So our country, it's like they don't care. Whatever you think of starting in this country, You just start without even checking what's good on this thing and what's bad.
And
Because
regulations
now,
come
Doctor,
later.
Yes. So like with the e-hailing, you can tell it's now that they are speaking of regulations. It's been here forever. So in this country, just do whatever, then you'll work on it later on.
Excellent point. We'll try raise it. I don't know. Maybe these people of ICASA, the Minister of Communications, if we can ever get a hold of him. We've been trying to get an interview, sit down with the Minister of Communications since March. Maybe even the Minister of Transport, Barbara. We'll see. But I think it's an excellent one to certainly probe. Thanks very much, Kuzo.
All right, thanks, Doctor.
That's Kuzo there in Tembisa, Sillo in Mamelodi.
Bafo. How's it?
Ungabe nizwile Bafo.
Siyabonga. Bafo, look, man. Crime. You know, there's this thing that it said, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
The way we handle it, and we put in human rights, we being nice, we being very diplomatic with it, we handle it kabutu. We're not gonna handle it. We won't win. We won't even. We need to handle this as in criminals. Stop putting all this fancy thing in the inside, because they don't. When they come to your house, Bafo, that's about Bafo thing more. If Bafo aga turn around Ramtos, already they've made a decision about you. So why are we sitting here and making these fancy laws about these people who are killing us? Who people don't care about us in an initial fact. Why should we care about them? They don't care about us. Why should we care about them?
Maybe we assume, Sello, that it is not solving the actual problem. That's a symptom. That initially a society that can produce the amount of violent crime that we have as a country cannot solve that crime by addressing the fruits. We have to address the root causes. So when you kill the criminals, you're not really addressing the problem which produces criminals. What are the conditions in our communities in the first place that make it possible for beings like that, who act like this, they grow up in your households? So if we don't address the root causes, that's the question. Violence, where has violence resolved anything? It's a bit strange for you, Sello, to arrive at that conclusion.
1 minute, Bafo. If uzala pagwa langshala kona Mamelodi, ne, there's a langshala kona, there's a lot of illegal shacks zigcwele lapho. Bafo ukastene into that area and go and steal. You will never, because those people who live into that area, they're very harsh to crime. All this, most of the foreigners that are in our country, check into their country who crime, how low it is. Because they don't come fancy. So these criminals, Bakluha from Zim or wherever, Bafika enjoy the life in here. So what I'm saying is, in the teaching,
for instance, in the Cape Flats there, my brother, it's not foreigners. How do you explain the Cape Flats?
I think it's a different that one. All I'm saying before lungu uba for unes lungu uba for unes pam. We can't.
Your calls on 0861 987 000. Also send your voice notes on 083 303 7093. I've got a slow network here. I'm going to request. All right, there, Zweli. How do you do, Chip? Zasemahalis, Maj network. You are. What do you have in mind this morning?
No, we understand. I think what you are of Cape Town, it should be and active citizenry. The community on its own must also be active on the ground to assist the police. The issue of crime and lawlessness is not only the issue of police, but as a community member, because a criminal go out of my own house as my child or as my brother, as to go out and rob someone and bring whatever that he has robbed in the house. I don't play my role. I want to take everything and put it in the hands of the police. What is my role? And when I talk of my role, I'm not talking of mob justice. And I'm glad that you've called order on mob justice or law of the jungle. We're not talking about that, but to inform the police about the crime that is taking place in our community. What is important, I would like to appreciate the men in blue, the police on the ground. While on higher echelons, they are misunderstanding, people are fighting, senior management of the police are fighting. But men on the ground, they are still doing their work. Their spirit is not dampened. Yesterday, they killed a well-known kidnapper from Mozambique. He has made his maker very fast, or he is in fast. 2 in Kwamashu yesterday, they died, who were carrying a serious ammunition to go and rob the community. And what I like about that province, KwaZulu-Natal,
I'm sure then you are happy with the political task team by the Premier of Gauteng, the initiative that to go and really look into these killings in the tech.
I was actually highly excited when I saw that particular announcement. And he specifically mentioned city of Tshwane thrice to say that those political killings, they've been going on in the city of Tshwane, the taxi killing. I'm saying also big up to Panyaza. Things are coming out. I think the help is on the way.
Thank you, Zweli.
Thank you, Doc.
That's Zweli there in Tshwane. Let's go to Ernest in the East Rand. Welcome to Power Talk, Chief. I'm fine. How are you?
All right. I heard your previous conversation. Discussed.
Ernest, your line is a bit troublesome. Just hold on, see if we can call you back. Let's try reconnect. Let's go to Mika in Sebokeng. Hello, Mika.
Dumela ngwana heso man.
Re tswile ka ndati.
Dr Ndlozi dumela.
Re a dumela.
Re hloka leadership ya hao. O le ka o hlalosetsa batho ka ntho tsa crime mohlomong rona re batla di-punishment tsa bore motho ha o tswitswe a gaolele tsona. Ha o ife motho ono thola o tswitse empa go re re mo suspecta fela mara ha ona bonnete ba ntho. Ntho tse jwalo di hloka gore di shebuwe. O na le utlwe batho ba South Africa ha re kwatile ho bua ka crime re no re batla death sentence. Mara death sentence eo ha o ka re wa sheba nako ntse fetileng e ne ntse ile a kgethollo e ne sa etse ka kakaretso crime. But he ntle di tlang ka yona ke ena sheba no hona le bodi ho tshwere batho ba cash ba di heist ba batho ba tshwereng bao ho sane ba kana ba tronko ba ikgutlela ha ba qeta ho ikgutlela ntate be ba tlo etsisa bana ba teng hona tjena ba fitla ba re ba stand as a councillor the very same rona ba ai ke rona re ba votela jwale rona ha we crime re tshwenya today me genge mengata tse teng ya dipolitiki ke eng re ntse re kgetha na wane so ha ke re motho a se ka tshwarelwa mare le tsebe hore nna le tsene ke le ngwana e shene le security guard o bolauwe crime then ka je go lena ke be ke fitla ke tlo kgetha motho ene le ona le active crime bela crime ngwana it's organized ha e tshwane le bosodi bo ba go mhlomong o utswa cheese o lapile shopong crime wa plana ke organized crime the very same person wa tla hape wa ye as a prominent la mo kgetha pele ona le mo shapela matsogo today batho ba shapela the criminal matsogo today and then re ntse re handendele ba ai ba South Africa ha re batla crime fele re na ba crime tlo fela jwa bone sa selful kana go rona re tseba dipepe mashodu emba ha re fane ka nation le ke bothata ngwaneso
yeah no ke nnete ke le wile o mena
ha ne ntene ke le ka fela ba ihlaisa hore ha re le ba ahi re dutse ra lla just hanyanyana mona vale mona na le by election ka wa 35 batho batho ba fitla ba electa batho ba bitswang gore ke bo mamang. We know those people ba shapa batho every day ga ba bona la ba entse di gali tsa bona ba under influence, and then rona ra ba kgetha ge na hana gore no ga ka gore ha service delivery le problem etse go na le mekgatlo re tsebang, go na le baahi ba rona be re ba tsebang gore o ntate ona mare ke ntate e sale ge phela le yena ka mona o itshwere hantle, mare re fitla re rekelwa majwala mane re fitla re no re kgetha party ena entse re tseba party ena e batla gore motho wa mona le le o tuna le mokgatlo mo tswa kenya regalia sa ke ntse regalia tse 7 ntate mo tshepa jwa motho a jwana no ke a le bua ntate
re le bile nna ntate a re Thabo ko Protea Glen. Dumela Thabo. Hello Thabo.
Hi doctor, how are you?
I'm
doctor?
fine. How are you, Chief?
I'm good, doctor. Can you hear me?
We're good. Maybe just
good. No, doctor, I wanted us to
close the window in the car, maybe. Thabo?
Okay, no, I don't know if I sound better now.
Okay,
doctor.
well, let's try that. Proceed.
Do I sound better now, doctor?
Let's try it. Proceed.
Yes. No, I just wanted us to understand the root cause of these criminal activities that are currently taking place in our country.
Yes.
Remember, based on the current system that we are living under, there's so many unjust situations. There's so many unequal communities, and some of the disadvantaged communities, in terms of the act that they do to go and pursue the criminal activities, it is pushed and perpetuated by their current situation where they are living. So our government is failing to create opportunities for our communities, for our youth out there. So there's so many things that are still not in line or to be aligned to justify this gap that we have of inequalities and try to mitigate and close the gap of poverty and stuff. So those elements will still contribute and perpetuate to the current community and then to influence them to go and commit the certain criminal activities they are doing. So we need to emphasize on our government to do whatever that is possible so that they can alleviate this particular unemployment that we are currently experiencing, community that are so much poor, and also the land that we can also utilize to create opportunities that they are not distributing out to our community. Those are my 2 cents of thought, doctor. Thank you so much.
But how do you explain high levels of GBV? Is it still the conditions that you are describing? The high levels of rape? Thabo?
Not really all the... I don't know if you can hear me, doctor.
Yeah, now we
hear
can.
me?
Yes.
Yes, remember that not all the crime situations. Some other criminal activities is just from a personal decision, a person that makes his own personal decision to go and commit those other activities or criminal activity. But majority, the common issue of criminal activities are contributed by the current circumstances that we are living.
Okay. Thanks indeed, Thabo, for your contribution.
Thank you, doctor.
That's Thabo there on the road, it seems. We are taking your calls, Bantwana Benkosi, 0861987000. You can also send us your voice notes on 083-303-7093. This is Power Talk with me, Dr Ndlozi, and it's a very tricky explanation to attribute sometimes. Yes, the living conditions play a large role, and maybe part of the economic power is that if you are in a situation of real economic power, even women themselves are protected by the economic conditions not to be vulnerable, to be able to protect themselves, to be able to choose better conditions, better relations. Doesn't always mean that perverted, degenerate rebel to thugs. Yes, I don't know what your interpretation might be, but that seems to be the argument offered there by one of the callers. 0861987000 is our studio line, and send your voice notes on 0833037093. This is Power Talk. If you've just joined us, with me, Dr Ndlozi.
Good morning, Mr. Ndlozi. Louis from Pretoria. Mr. Ndlozi, I have a question I've been asking myself for the longest time. How is that possible for Mr. Matlala to have an associate, Mr. Begit, and at the same time, Mr. Senzo, our police ministers? How is that possible? Two of them, how is that possible? They were put there deliberately by the president, knowing who these people, but or some Mr. Matlala, or maybe it's a coincidence, or by Mr. Matlala bali two. Like Hutli Lebiang bali two, Bakono Hova in as the next police minister, or Atlangurianaga Civil Association, Lady Criminals.
Power Talk with Dr Ndlozi, where your voice is heard and opinion matters.
That is an explosive question. Yes. How do we know? Did Minister Begit not guilty until proven so? I don't know. Did Senzo Mchunu? If you want my opinion, I don't know, Bandana Bengos. There is no way that an organized criminal has a relationship with the Minister of Police and the doesn't know. It's time for the news here on Power Talk. News with Nhlanhla Sihume.
Power News. Thanks, Mbuseni. Top stories at this hour. Parliament grills Gauteng leaders over troubling municipal audit outcomes and over 180 vehicles pulled off Gauteng roads in a transport crackdown. With the Power News at 10, a very good morning. I'm Nhlanhla Sihume. A high-stakes parliamentary joint oversight meeting is underway in Randburg today, which zeroes in on Premier Panyaza Lesufi and several MECs have been called to account after the Auditor General flagged a regression in finance. Chairperson for the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Committee, that's Zelum Kize, says the findings point to deeper governance no longer be ignored.
That the audit outcomes were a source of concern, where there was no indication of improvement and there was a fear that these may regress unless some effort is made to ensure that there's a change of culture, to strengthen accountability and consequence management, to stop the culture of impunity that seems to be associated with transgressions that are picked up in the audit reports.
Staying in Gauteng, at least 106 vehicles in the province have been slapped with discontinue notices for being unfit for the road, while 78 were impounded for flouting traffic laws in the past month. The crackdown forms part of a wider Department of Transport intensified drive to curb road carnage and restore order on the province's pathways or highways. Now, speaking on Power Breakfast, Gauteng MEC for Transport, Kidiboni Dialetlabela, said persistent non-compliance, especially in the public transport sector, remains a serious concern.
We have a huge number of public transport operating illegally. Illegally meaning not compliant with the laws of this country. Either the driver does not have a PDP or the vehicle is not properly licensed. And most of the vehicles impounded is either because of unroadworthiness as per our laws. Secondly, the ones that are impounded are the ones that cannot even prove that they have applied for operating licenses.
She added that the recent flare-ups of taxi violence highlight the urgency of modernizing the taxi industry, which she believes is central to both safety reform and long-term stability in this sector.
Quite a difficult sector this. Taxi has like and it has always been like that, and it really needs to change. And those are the things that we discuss with them, that you'll need to modernize. The current commuter is not like an old commuter that you are used to that accepts abuse and harassment. And I'm glad that they are agreeing to being modernized.
The Polokwane Magistrate Court has denied bail to a former police sergeant and her two relatives who are accused in a grisly life insurance murder scheme worth more than 10 million rand. Ex-Sergeant Rachel Kutumela, her sister Anna Shokani and her daughter Flora Shokani face 9 counts of murder, along with charges of fraud, money laundering and defeating the ends of justice. Investigators in this case insurance policies in their names before orchestrating their killings in staged incidents. In handing down judgment, the magistrate found the women had failed to show exceptional circumstances to warrant their release. The case, which has shocked the community and raised questions about gaps in the insurance and policing system.
The charges against the applicants are so serious that if proved against them, the minimum sentence legislation become applicable, and for fear of such eventualities, the lives of witnesses may be in danger and or threatened. Taking into consideration the heads of argument by both defense counsel as well as the heads of argument by the state, the court is satisfied that there are no exceptional circumstances which warrant the release of the applicant on bail in this matter.
Transitional Parliament has unanimously passed a which criminalizes conduct seen as promoting LGBTQ plus practices, which also deepens concerns around shrinking freedoms under the military rule in that country. The amendment to the Persons and Family Code introduces fines, prison terms, and other sanctions for those convicted. The Justice Minister in that country, Edaso Rodrigue Bayala, confirmed the bill's passage, adding that it now awaits formal approval from Junta Cap Ibrahim Traore, who is currently leading that country. A look at your pound and 20 Rand 66 cents. Crude oil is at $66.88 per barrel. Recapping the top story in Power News at this hour. A high-stakes parliamentary joint oversight meeting is currently underway in Randburg, which zeroes in on Gauteng municipality's troubling audit outcomes for the 2023-2024 financial year.
In Nelson Mandela Drive northbound in the city of Tshwane, you can expect queuing traffic as you're passing Waterkloof heading towards the George Storer Drive exit in Groenkloof. If you're traveling on Solomon Mahlangu Drive eastbound, you will bump into some delays as you're passing the Rigel Avenue intersection heading towards the Louis Avenue junction due to what seems like an obstruction that's on the road in that area. If you're in the city of Johannesburg and you're traveling on the M1, slow-moving traffic approaching the Crown interchange on the N3 northbound. You can also expect queuing traffic with delays starting just before the Modderfontein exit, clearing after the Marlborough Drive off-ramp.
Power News.
7. And now you're listening to Power Talk. Dr Ndlozi, 9 a.m. Calls on 08.
Welcome back, Bantwana Benkosi. This is Power Talk, and we turn now to that story of the 63 child murders in 5 months in the Western Cape. And thanks for the open call, rather. I'm joined online by Dr. Robert McDonald, Western Cape Social Development HOD, to expand and take us through precisely the problem of these child killings. Welcome to Power Talk, Doc, and thanks indeed for creating time to speak to us.
Good morning to you.
Good morning. Yes, we have this sense that Major General of the SEPS presented statistics covering the period from the 1st of April to the 31st of August. Just for the purposes, as it were, of our listeners, Dr. McDonald, maybe just a refreshing of the key findings, or rather the key aspects of these statistics.
Well, the South African Police Services presented the statistics for the 5 months up until August of this year. But I think if you look a bit further back, we can also say that in 2018 there was 175 child murders for that year. That number went up to, in 2018, to around 135, and then during COVID the figures substantially along with crime statistics in general. But then they started to rise again. So in 2022, we saw 163 child murders, and that has increased now to 197 last year. So there is a trend of around 200 child murders per year in the Western Cape. It's remained approximately the same for the last 10 years, and that pattern seems to be repeating again during this year. So a large proportion of that is in the age group 15 to 18 years, and those children are by and large children that are involved in gang activity, either as shooters for gangs or children who have been killed in gang crossfire. So really, the majority of the children killed is due to gun violence.
And as you correctly located, I mean, I don't know how much of the department knows of who is killing them. I mean, I know that you're approximating that majority who are in this age group are involved in gang violence in the first instance, but are they in the majority being killed by other children? Do we know this, and do we know what are the proportions?
Well, where there are convictions in these cases,
Yes.
that information would be able to be obtained, but we don't have all the detail for all of the cases. I think the main thing that we are picking up is that a lot of children are being recruited into gang activity, and the gangs are using them to carry out hits. So there are children who are being killed by other children and also by adults. And then there are also children who are drinking, underage drinking, who are also getting involved in fights at shebeens or alcohol outlets, and are also being victim to being murdered as well. So there's not one particular cause, but a number of different ones. But the largest number is children involved in shootings, and the gang warfare is also between teenagers in many instances.
Mm-hmm. And this obviously happens in communities that, or maybe let me ask it in this way, the profile of the communities where majority of these murders are taking place. Can you take us through some of the profiles of these communities?
Well, the areas that were named by the SAPS as the hotspots, and those include areas like Delft, Philippi East, Kraaifontein, and so forth. And yes, these are lower income areas. I think the gang culture tends to be stronger in those areas. There's a lot of they are also providing forms of social support to families. They pay for school uniforms. They provide families with food, and they prey on the vulnerability of low-income families by giving them things that they can't get from elsewhere. So I think the reality is that in many of these communities, children are recruited into gangs because they already have an older brother in the gang. It's a kind of it's stepping in where into the space where the government should normally be.
But what then would the department's plan be? I get the diagnosis. These are Cape flats. The histories of these communities go far back, and the cultures, the compounding cultures of violence and of gangs seem to be the most important social organizing structures within the community, alongside other social organizations, beginning with the family, the churches, the schools, and all of that. But gangs seem to be overwhelming the rest of social structures. How do you plan to disarticulate this?
Well, I think that is a huge undertaking that needs to be done across a number of departments, as well as taking hands with civil society. So it's not something any one department can address on its own. We also, we do have services to protect children who are at risk, and there's a lot of children in our secure care facilities as social development that we've taken out of the gang situation. But the changing the culture and changing the profile of these communities is a long-term process where we are working together with other government departments, with SAPs, with the community-based organizations, churches, and other religious groups. And in some communities, we are beginning to see the gang culture shift away. But it is in some areas where it is very entrenched and it is very difficult to shift. So in some parts of the Western Cape, where the Western Cape government safety plan is being implemented, social development is part of what are known as area-based teams, which comprise the SAPs, the municipal policing, the departments of health, social development, education, and also NGOs. And we are seeing some good traction in those areas. We are seeing youth reaching out, saying they don't want to be part of gangs. They want to find an alternative, and they want to become involved in productive economic activity, get jobs, education, and so on. So I think there are success stories, and then there are other communities which are still very difficult. There are some communities where we find our social workers can't even go in. It's too dangerous. They need to go in with SAPs, and those communities are especially difficult to shift the needle in.
This situation has existed in your own admission for many, many years. You were counting to us that on average 200 children are murdered every single year. Sometimes it's higher, but on average, at least for a decade, this has been the case. We are looking to hear precisely what radical measures, or rather new measures, what plan does the government in the Western Cape have to dissuade, to change this trajectory? Because, this would have been the standard actors. We are seeing some who are interested to the root causes of the entire problem. What in the entire thinking and strategy is really new to change the Cape Flats from being the haven of gang violence and organized gang communities?
Well, I think the underlying structural drivers of the gang culture and the high crime rate in South Africa in general relate to the nearly stagnant economic growth. It relates to the fact that there is not enough investment and job creation. The big underlying objective that needs to be pursued if we're going to change this, because government needs to be able to offer an alternative to gangs, and government alone can't do that. We need the private sector to grow. We need the job opportunities that come with economic growth. So I think that is the fundamental needs that we are facing. Wherever you've seen stagnant economic growth around the world, you always find the rise of organized crime and gangs, and this is to turn around if we can have alternatives for people.
All right. That's Dr. Robert, Cape Social Development HOD. Thanks deeply for creating time to speak to us here on Power Talk.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a quick sting ad break, and we are now joined by the Minister of International Relations, Mr. Ronald Lamola. Stay tuned.
Power Breakfast with TT.
Tennis happening out at the US Open. Venus Williams and her partner Leila, they are out. Venus Williams is 45 years old. I don't think you'll get much money though from the bookmakers on this one. On great odds on Serena coming back. You've seen how much weight she has
She's
lost.
dropped a lot of weight.
It's the Ozempic.
Titi, you made diagnoses very quick.
I didn't know. Did she mention She did say, yeah, she's on Ozempic. Hey, Musebele says she looks too thin, man. Imunyola mafura yona. Kono. Imunyola mafura.
Power Breakfast, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on Power 98.7.
Our dealer services over 40
ask them to
grand
forgive us.
special.
We've brought the entire
If you need a
infrastructure.
trading valuation, contact
please. Come back. We have now the Minister of Relations. Welcome, Minister. Thanks very much for joining us here in Magaliesburg. We've been looking for you for a very long time.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
And the peace and security, stability dialogue taking place here. The Thabo Mbeki Foundation always seems so interested in bringing Africans together to talk about their problems, to try and find solutions to their own problems. A very powerful initiative. I wonder what's your reaction to this specific session here and what was your message?
Yeah, it is a very important platform for the Thabo Mbeki Foundation to create for Africans to find space to engage about their issues. And I believe it's a safe space because this is where you also interact with the former leaders, with the former ambassadors, and some that are still active. It gives a very good context to contextualize the challenges of peace and stability that we are facing in the continent. And former leaders usually give us very objective issues. They've got no career to protect. So they are able to provide very good advice to us. So that's why and to all the Africans who participate here, they also come with the objective reality. So that's why we see it as a very important platform of recalibrating our foreign policy outlook in terms of our inputs to the peace initiatives in the continent.
One of the matters or the countries that are going to occupy attention in this dialogue is the DRC, and some of the delegation includes members of the M23. Of course, the DRC official position is that President Mbeki has seemed to be biased on the question and they haven't sent a delegation. But isn't it true that South Africa used to be the center of gravity for resolution of many conflicts in the continent? President Mandela, President Mbeki, President Partly, President Zuma. The question of the DRC and the resolution, the peacemaking had been South Africa as the center of gravity. That seemed to no longer be the case with President Kagame and Tshisekedi going to the Middle East to speak about the resolution of that conflict with the Americans being involved. South Africa is no longer the center of gravity. And I wanted to ask your specific reaction to that because part of the criticism the president of Rwanda gave was South Africa's mission in the DRC had been compromised because of the political elite's business interests. What is DERCO's analysis? I mean, not just about the DRC, about South Africa seemingly not longer being the center of gravity for the leadership and the strategic leadership of the continent, using the DRC as an example.
Yeah, firstly, on that point of the political elite's business interests, he has never produced any evidence. So it's not true. South Africa's participation in any conflict area, as you know, since former President Mandela, has been driven by the desire to see peace and to ensure that there is stability, because we have always viewed peace in the DRC or in any part of the continent where South Africa participates as an important enabler for stability, but also for economic development and development itself for that society, because we believe that if that society has got economy and it is developed, it is also good for South Africa, it's good for the entirety of the continent. There has not been anywhere where South Africa has been involved where it is self-serving business interest of either of the country or of any business people. It can't be found anywhere. And that's why in the continent to date, South Africa is still respected, coming to your question, because we don't go with the hand of looking to extract any business interest in any peace initiative. South Africa is still very at the center. We are the chair of the Committee of Five that is currently looking into the matter of the revitalized peace agreement in South Sudan, assigned by the African Union. As you are aware, our defense force participated in the DRC through the Summit DRC, which was a resolution of SADC, which we usually participate at a multilateral forum. And SADC as a body took a decision that the environment now is no longer conducive for for the defense forces of the three countries that were there. Removed, and we must give the process that SADC and the East Africa community had initiated, including the African Union process that was led by by President Lorenzo of Angola, which is still an ongoing process which has now been integrated. So South Africa still has a role to play in that, and we continue to participate. And we participate at that level of multilateralism. And you will remember, even in those instances which you are referring to, it was an assignment from the SADC body. It's not like South Africa initiated at a bilateral level on its own, but it was assigned by SADC. And every time we are assigned by SADC or we are assigned by the African Union, we play our role. And even in this instance, that is the question. And you can see with the process now that the Africa-led process remains very critical for the stability of the Eastern DRC, because it's not like it is stable now. There is still huge challenges. You can, every day there are skirmishes of communities that have been displaced, reports every day. So it's clear that the solution will come from that initiative, the Africa initiative, and also with the process that the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has also started of engaging the domestic players, civic societies and so forth within the DRC. The process that you have referred to, obviously, of Washington and Qatar, we see it as part of reinforcing what is already existing, which the East Africa community and SADC had already started. Those engagements had already started, and all those leaders participated in that process. But we can't stop people from going to Qatar or from the US, but we have to continue to do our job and call for the process to be respected by all the stakeholders, including both leaders.
But in the past, that initiative to bring the different warring factions in the Democratic Republic of Congo form sometimes. Such a meeting would have taken place in Sun City, in Gauteng, in the northwest, in South Africa. But the center of gravity seems to be moving out of the continent. Donald Trump is getting involved on the one hand. He's going all over. He has ended that war. Yeah, as well as the Middle East, where Africans, in order to meet each other, in order to sit in the manner we're sitting now, have to go to Qatar. I'm saying that isn't South Africa able to accept that the center of gravity has moved and shifted, make an analysis to say what could have accounted for this, and this is what we are going to do to change it?
The reality, Busen, as you stated, that all those actors, the domestic actors and so forth, even the meeting in the US and in Qatar, it was just the leader and so forth. But all those domestic actors, non-state and actors have not yet been brought together. And that's why there is still hope through the process of the SADC and the East Africa community to initiate such an important engagement. You will remember that the declaration of SADC and the East Africa said that both and non-state actors must be brought under one roof. So that must still happen for us to see durable peace in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. But there must also be that engagement of the own domestic issue. The process that is currently will lead to that engagement. What has happened in Qatar and the US, which I've said, can't stop them from engaging. It was the leaders themselves declaring some form of a ceasefire. But you need to have it on the ground. What we are referring to in Sun City, it was all these parties. They came, they stayed there for some time, and when they emerged with an agreement that had some implementation measures that South Africa continued to monitor within the auspices of the bodies. And that's why I've said, for now, if South Africa chair the South Sudan initiative, we were not the chair of SADC when this process started, and that's why countries that were chairing the process had to take the initiative. And even when South Africa took the initiative of in the DRC in those processes, we were the chair of the body, and we had to be assigned that responsibility.
The SADC summit, the outcomes, which the current one that took place, in which I think the Troika leadership is coming to your trees to hold each other accountable about a set of values, a set of practices. I wonder, in relation to that summit, if the questions one of the DRC came up, that particular conflict in SADC, and what was the outcome in that summit, if there was a conversation about Kivu and the entire Eastern DRC conflict on the one hand. And secondly, if you could also indicate, in these meetings, we saw President Ramaphosa in Zimbabwe recently. And President Ramaphosa was attending whatever agriculture needs, which seems to be saying that there's a lot of economic innovation around agriculture happening in Zimbabwe. But many South Africans would wonder as well, if there is an honest conversation with the president of Zimbabwe, the situation of economic conditions that lead Zimbabweans that are in South Africa in the country in Zimbabwe that result into this outburst of illegal immigration or illegal migration that happens across the border, if that serves on the table, and if there's serious resolutions that can be taken about the two presidents.
Yes, Mbusen. Firstly, with regards to the SADC region on the Eastern DRC, yes, there was a discussion. And the report, if you remember, this term was seized by the table about how far is the process, the issue of the withdrawal, how far has it gone, and also what is the current prevailing situation and what is happening with the initiatives to actors and the state actors engagement that SADC has already initiated. And there was a report that the facilitators have now started the process of consulting and also of initiating the engagements. I hope soon they will announce how that process will unfold. appointed fully by the African Union, East Africa, and SADC. So that process will definitely unfold. And there was indeed a report that the situation remains precarious, the continued displacement of people. So the initiative must continue. With regards to Zimbabwe, in the context of SADC, one of the resolutions that came out very clear, and the discussion was informed by the engagements by the ministers of trade, is the issue of regional integration. There was a scorecard report. You can also see it. It's published. If you don't have, I can forward it. The scorecard report also indicates that we are trading in the SADC region at 21% amongst each other as countries of SADC. And the report says that we need to increase the trade amongst the SADC countries, because some of the issues that the countries, or even outside the continent, it's something that you might find that South Africa has, or Zimbabwe has, or Angola. So we need to find that regional integration on trade, power sharing in terms of energy consumption. Our energy comes, some of it from Mozambique, but some of the SADC countries have got surplus power. How do we find synergy to ensure that there can't be load shedding when there's surplus power in Angola? But you need infrastructure to connect to the energy grid in Angola, transmission and so forth. Water issues that you can't have Botswana having challenges of water when there's water in Lesotho. How do we integrate all that resource planning and so forth? So that report is very indicative, and what should be done and what should be the interventions to enable this, including the building of infrastructure, one of them being the one-stop border post, which takes long when we trade and transport our goods and so forth. So that is another issue, and that's why you can now see with Bedbridge, there is work happening on the one-stop border post, the Libombo. It's a SADC initiative. With regards to Zimbabwe, there is obviously engagements, even bilateral, amongst the leaders themselves, how to ensure that the economies of Zimbabwe also function and enables the people of Zimbabwe to work and so forth in their own country. And this also came as a result of a realization of also deepening ties of collaboration between South Africa and Zimbabwe, because our agricultural exports are the biggest in Zimbabwe. We export more agricultural products to Zimbabwe, but in the past, Zimbabwe was a food basket. So the president's attendance is how do we ensure that we support the Zimbabwean agricultural sector to contribute to food security, to the economy of Zimbabwe, but also initiative in Zim in terms of farming in a drought situation. Some of them still have the skill that we can exchange, and that is what the president of innovation sector in Zim, which also is South Africa we can learn from, and also Zimbabwe can learn from. And Zimbabwe's agriculture also learn from the aspects, and we support each other. Even with the current challenges, food, we were also assisted by Botswana to respond to this challenge in terms of the chemicals and so forth that was needed. So there is that engagement, but as you correctly put it, we need to hold it, but also work more for regional integration in terms of the economy. Our countries will grow. I mean, in most of our region, our economies are growing very low. Ourselves, we have been stagnated, 1% economic growth. Economies to grow and to function, because this will also be good for our economy too.
The security questions that relate to, and I'm saying that some logic to the African citizens about the massive populations in Zimbabwe as an example.
Yeah.
That stated that the 2010 xenophobic violence, for instance, was instigated, have xenophobic violence, so that Zimbabweans could go back, for instance, President Mugabe out. Of stability that ought to have arisen, the crime questions, for instance, many people committing crime in South Africa, running to Zimbabwe. At the center of the conversations about integration and cooperation is the question of security addressed, and if so, what are the plans to make sure that the borders that is taking advantage of the so-called porous borders doesn't a criminal I can go and perform a crime in Soweto and run to Bulawayo, because the people in Bulawayo and the police in Bulawayo will not be able to find me, because there's no regional cooperation or integration in terms of database, in terms of the police working together, and so those stability and security questions. Is there an honest conversation about that?
Prior to the summit and many parts of the region. So there is that cooperation. There is also engagement with regards to the extraditions, criminal assistance of information exchange amongst the organs, and they meet on their own from time to time to deal with these issues. And there is also support to that effect. And as a result, there are that we do get back, and there are some of the criminals that do come back to South Africa to be tried because of that. But there is a real question that we have to deal with ourselves, because foreign policy is also an extension of our domestic capabilities. We have to respond to the reality of our porous borders, which is a reality. And that's why the BMA is there to increase its capacity. So as government, we have to support it to increase the capability to be able to enforce our borders. That is our reality. Internally, we have to increase our capability and support to the South African Police Service to police crime and to arrest people when they've committed a crime. And it should not matter where you come from. If someone has committed a crime, the ones you are referring to, they must be arrested, whether they come from Zimbabwe or whether they come from Mozambique or they are South Africans. So that capability is what we are also supporting, that the South African police needs to work on to be able to implement, so that our laws must be enforced.
Let's move to the questions there, global, and maybe I want to move into these global questions that you are dealing with, the sort of changing dynamics in the international system. You authored a piece on the Daily Maverick stating that South Africa's position is non-alignment. I wondered if you could just break it down for us. As you would know, the question of non-alignment as a concept developed during a bipolar international system between the West and the Soviet Union, coded the East. And you start by saying that what we are beginning to witness is a multipolar world. How does non-alignment, which was developed as a concept during a bipolar international system, operate in a multipolar world? Why should South Africa, if the world is becoming multipolar, stick to a concept that views the world as a world where there are only two centers of gravity?
Yeah, it is for that reason that we must be able to engage with everyone in the globe, in the West, in the East, in the South, and in any parts of the world where South Africa wants to engage, it must be able to do so. And that's why it's important that we remain non-aligned. And the second one is that we're an emerging economy. And as an emerging economy, you need investment from all parts of the world. So you still must be able to receive economic investment from any part of the world, whether it's the US, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, or any part of the world in the South America, North America, Middle East. So it remains a very key principle that obviously we are not saying we should stick to it as a dogma. We must review it from time to time. And that's why it's a question I asked and I said, because we are in this forum of think tanks, the question we obviously are also grappling with, not only South Africa, but I think now the whole world, that with the current tensions that have been induced by the US tariffs, what does it mean to be non-aligned? Because it is clear from the character of the US and its action that it wants to impose, needs to take a position and not say you are non-aligned. And because of that, there is clear realignment by many countries in the East and so forth. What does this leave South Africa's position of non-alignment? At this stage, we have said it remains key that we need to remain in that position. But we also have to be alive to the realities that this environment calls for a deeper engagement on this topic, the same way you are asking it, because post the World War, the Cold War, the debate arose and led to the non-alignment position. But this was also an engagement that led to the Bandung conference that came up with this resolution. And it was an alliance of countries, which most of them were emerging, which respected human rights, that came up and say, this is the right position. It could be another opportune moment now for the same countries or with different constellations to again say, our position is this one, which is non-aligned, but the world has evolved. Now there are these realities. We continue to go forward. And in our view, we have to stick with this position, and that's why I penned the paper. But we are alive to the fact that it is evolving. We have to also have tactical considerations from time to time.
Let's for a moment evaluate the attitude. There are two sort of events that have happened in the past few weeks. Is the obvious one, the question of the relationship of the United States with NATO. In the view of our International Relations Department, something that is breaking, is fracturing. And then on the other, it's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the meeting that took place around the anniversary of China's victory over the Japanese. There again, we are seeing an organization that has been in formation since 2001. There's nothing nothing new. There's just more people trying to organize themselves, and it is also a security, military, and economic-based organization. Is really the world becoming multipolar, or it is going back into becoming a bipolar? Which other center of power are we speaking about, except these countries that are converging, which have always been associated together, China, Russia, India, on the one hand, and on the other, the Europeans and the Americans, and the rest of everybody having to choose sides? Are we reimagining the international order, or is it realigning towards two centers of power, or are there more centers? And if there are more, what would be the third and the fourth one?
Yeah, it's more. Remember, there's also a partnership of BRICS. And also, you will remember that we had a summit with the European Union. And the European Union came out fully in support of South Africa's G20 agenda, aligning itself with the progressive views that are emerging in the global trend. And I believe, as you have already said, with regards to the NATO, you can also see the fragmentation even in that regard. And India has not always been very pronounced in the Shanghai process. It's only now that they've come out more. They have always been part of a very important platform, which we are also part of, the IPSA countries of emerging democracies in the world.
And yet, Minister, these organizations,
so,
BRICS, IPSA, have a difference between NATO and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. These are military state. BRICS doesn't have a military agenda.
Yes, but
so from a superpower point of view,
I'm defining it in the context of geopolitics, that they still do have a geopolitical connotation. They still have a role to play and to signal in terms of where the country stands on the issues of geopolitics. That's why I also said, you will remember we had a summit with the European Union, and they were very clear that they align and support our agenda of the G20, which shows that while they are very aligned in terms of NATO, in terms of their security position, they are alive to the realities that the geopolitical environment needs all countries of the globe in a multipolar forum to be able to engage each other, to speak on the issues of the economy, to speak on issues of security, to also speak on issues of political stability. And that's why the platforms like the G20, the platforms of nations, despite the US having withdrawn, and also the platforms of engagements, even with China. The European Union is now saying they are looking at for more trade with China. So these are the realities that we ourselves also as a country have to navigate with more pragmatism and obviously taking technical consideration on an assessment basis.
In the discussions, the Americans used to speak about a rule-based order, which majority of the people rejected because it meant you play by their rules or you're an enemy. But currently, even now in this Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, Xi Jinping seems to be speaking about a new world order. And we all know of just an international rules-based order based on international law. If I may ask, what is the DERCO's attitude? Do we have an analysis of what Xi and sometimes President Xi Jinping and President Putin speak about when they say a new world order? What does it include? What are its rules?
Yeah, firstly, with regards to the international law based, an international rules order based on international law, it is not about the might always being right. This is where all nations are equal in an international rules-based order, which is based on international law, is where it's just an international rules-based order, which is not anchored on international law, where the might will always want to be right. With regards to the pronouncement by President Xi, we have interpreted it on many occasions and also on engaging with China. They also understand it to be an international rules-based order anchored on international law. And that's why they've supported some of the initiatives.
So what's new about it, if it is already affirming the international-based
is the emergence of a multipolarity in the world, where every nation has got the right to trade, has got the right to develop, to civilize, and so forth. So that is what you will know is the antithesis of what the US and so forth. So that is what is new, that an emerging multipolar world is now here. And we now need to contend with that reality, how we move forward as nations and build our own national interest around that reality.
But what are Africa's initiatives? What are Africa's interests, and how do we see these interests? You seem to be always participating in initiatives that are not your own. Certainly South Africa is not coalescing anyone to say let's define an agenda in this new global order or a new world order. This is going to be an African organized interest, and we are going to pursue it with the following partners. maybe China, maybe so and so, maybe so and so. Where are the initiatives by South Africa to take advantage of the situation?
South Africa led the process of the AFCTA. It's a process that must integrate the African economies.
You mean the Africa Free Trade Agreement?
Yes, we were in the forefront of that, and that's why even the first shipment of the AFCTA was here in Durban. If I'm not mistaken, was early last year or so. So South Africa has always been in the forefront. South Africa was also in the forefront during COVID, when the African countries could not have access to vaccines. It was South Africa that was a champion, because we were the chair of the African Union at the time, to champion the interest of the African continent. South Africa, even now, in the engagements of the AU and SADC, we have been in the forefront to say the Africa Free Trade Area must be the defining feature of all our engagements with strategic partners. And now the African Union has just concluded an engagement with TICAD in Japan. One of the key declarations there, and that is what South Africa has always championed itself, which we did with the with the European Union. And you can look at those declarations, that with regards to the current wave of critical minerals in the world, the African continent must not be left behind. There must be value addition, there must be industrialization, there must be local manufacturing, which will then enable us to trade with each other in the continent, because you can't trade with each other if there's no manufacturing, there's no industrialization and so forth. So this is in the declaration we had with the European Union. We also took that to the declaration with FOCAC, with China. You can check it, it's in the declaration, the value addition, industrialization at source in the African continent. And lastly, with the TICAD platform in Japan. So South Africa continues to play its role of uniting the continent, of engaging in the multilateral platforms at the AU, but also at the UN level, in line to add the voice of the African Union, including the issue of the reform of the Security Council of the United Nations. South Africa is always engaging in that platform in line with the positions of the AU, which we always advocate, even at the AU platform. But with regards to this one, even on the AFCTA, as I've said, we have championed it, we have done it. We continue to encourage countries to speak in one voice. But there is also a need of the countries to also act in solidarity with South Africa. When there are challenges in Zim, South Africa acts in solidarity on a number of issues, sanctions which are unilateral, and so forth. It is also time, like it happened in the past, when South Africa is under attack, for also countries to do the same. So South Africa has always done that. Even in all our engagements on the tariffs with the US, we engage on the platform that there is Africa. We end up with support and reinforce the Africa Free Trade Area. Also, the SACU platform, it remains important for it to enable.
Very much, Minister. In 2 seconds, when is Bushiri coming to South Africa to answer for his crimes? In 2 seconds.
The process, he will definitely come back to respond to all other people that must come and account in South Africa.
The voice, Bandana Benkosi, of Ronald Lamola, our Minister of International Relations here in South Africa. Thanks very much for creating time to speak to us with Ndlozi.
Power News.
Thanks a lot, Mbuseni. Top stories at this hour. Minister Ronald Lamola says Africa must shape its own destiny and service of renowned political was held earlier in Germany. With the Power News at International Relations Minister says Africa must do more to shape its own destiny and also urges nations on the continent Lamola was delivering the keynote address at the annual Africa Peace and Security Dialogue, which is hosted by the Thabo Mbeki Foundation in Magaliesburg. He stresses global uncertainty. Minister Lamola also warns against over-reliance on use their own compass to navigate crises.
A country like South Africa cannot afford to align itself with anyone of the superpowers. But true to non-alignment is the principal assertion of our right to think for ourselves and be not just the subject and objects of others' agendas. Instead, is the shaping of our own agendas. The external driven initiatives must be to reinforce the African initiatives.
He also highlighted the importance of continental unity in responding to economic challenges, including the reciprocal tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, which he argues demand a coordinated African response.
In the African continent, and South Africa in particular, have got some kind of unique feature that are veering into our domestic affairs. What should we do as a continent, but also as individual member states of the African Union? Should we continue to practice what we have always practiced with this wave of changes? And I believe that this conference is an opportune moment because it is coming at the right time.
The funeral service of renowned political journalist and broadcaster Matshidiso Madia was held earlier at the San Salvador Catholic Church in Germiston. Madia passed away last Wednesday after a short illness, just days after celebrating her 42nd birthday. Now, she was remembered by her colleagues, friends and family as a fearless journalist whose career spanned leading newsrooms including Power 98.7 and later Eyewitness News. Now, tributes highlighted a sharp political insight, integrity and unwavering commitment to holding power to account. Her passing has been described as a profound loss to South African journalism, leaving a void in the country's political reporting landscape. Her friend and former colleague Aldrin St-Pierre led heartfelt tributes from her friends.
I love this woman so much. If you go back to, even from back 2011, 2012, when we would go to press briefings, you will see TD and I are always sitting next to each other. When I had my difficult moments as the public figure, she was the one who would call, and I said to people were saying to me that, what do you make of people who are not calling you and what when you were going through a difficult time? And I said, the people that I expected to show up when I was going through my difficult time, they did so. And she was amongst those people.
St-Pierre also recalled the last meal he shared with Madia and a circle of friends.
When we were discussing me leaving media, and it was difficult, yes, she had her own reservations that she spoke about. But there was the singing that was taking place that day. Clement doesn't know the lyrics, please don't mind him. That last supper, looking back now, says to us friends who are left behind that we had somebody who was the glue of the friends and the friendship.
A high-stakes parliamentary joint oversight meeting is underway in Randburg, which zeroes in on Gauteng municipality's troubling audit outcomes for the 2023-2024 financial year. Cs have been called to account after the Auditor General flagged a regression in financial performance across the province's municipalities. Chairperson for the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Committee, Dr Zweli Mkhize, says the findings must, or rather, point to deep governance and accountability failures that can no longer be ignored.
That the audit outcomes were a source of concern, where there was no indication of improvement and there was a fear that these may regress unless some effort is made management to questions that are picked up in the audit report.
The Department of Agriculture has confirmed 2 cases of the foot and mouth 5 provinces in South Africa. That's KZN, Gauteng.
But there's a number of animals that are infected, so that they don't further spread. The aim of us running of being to ensure that the virus, so that they don't further spread. The aim of us running of being to ensure that the virus where it is.
The rand 19 rand 75 cents to the US dollar, 23 rand 89 against the pound, and 20 rand cents to the euro.
Online and DSTV channel 89. This 8.7.
This is Power 98.7. 98.7. And now you're listening to Power Talk with Municipal and Ndlozi, 9 a.m. to midday, taking your calls on 0861 987 000.
At Magaliesburg to speak and follow the developments of the African Peace and Security Dialogue hosted by the Thabo Mbeki. And I'm joined by the CEO, Dr Boqwana.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, we just say so much of what we would have loved in terms of time, but a fair chat with the Minister of International already addressed in this dialogue. But this is the 15th year since the existence of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, and it has been engaged in this relentless effort to get Africans, gather them at different parts of the continent, of some form or the other, in security, peace and stability, questions of security, peace and stability, questions of Africa resolving its own violent.
Muiseni, thank you very much. You will note that at the formation of the once again a gathering of Africans from all over the continent. And President Mbeki had refused to set up a foundation named after himself because he's always very concerned about personal legacies, and in young leaders. But it was at the insistence, not even a persuasion from people like President Bouteflika, people like President Kufuor, President Obasanjo, that insisted that foundation. And I recall foundation. And I recall then when the foundation act, whether you're talking about African mining plan, whether you're talking about the state texture or governance, whether they're talking about electoral reforms, etc. It says President Mbeki has been at the helm of putting together these policies and eventually putting together the institutions like the APRM, the institutions like Mbeki's on these issues. The idea was that in reality, has got almost, and that's why then our first program as the foundation was the Leadership Institute, where we thought it's critical that we immerse young people, but to produce agents who would to 70% of the conflicts worldwide. We, in the past 3 years, we have had the highest number of unconstitutional change of government. We've got the highest number of displaced people. We've got terrible situations where even issues like sexual assault and rape are still used as the weapons of war. With the continent facing such challenges, for it to develop will remain a pipe dream. So that's why then we thought from last year, let's once again provide a platform for the convergence of Pan-African change agents who are not willing to inherit an Africa that is burdened by disease, that is burdened by conflict, that is burdened by ignorance and say, let's confront these challenges that we face as ordinary Africans. Here we sit with leaders, we sit with scholars, we sit with young people, we sit with women activists, we sit with practitioners in all of these areas, really to mull through a further understanding and deepening of our understanding of our problems and seeking these solutions. So we thought this will be a platform then to focus on the peace architecture of our continent, whether it's working or not working, what are the shortcomings. Then we said we will have that broad framework, but every other year it will be accompanied by 2 case studies. So last year the first case study was on the Sahel, and the second case study was on the Horn of Africa, focusing mainly on the 2 Sudans. This year, we thought then the 2 case studies will be the Great Lakes, in particular the Congo, and specifically the eastern part of the Congo on the one hand, and also Mozambique on the other hand. So this is where we are at this present moment.
Starting with the question of Eastern DRC, to me that one of the invitations was denied. The DRC government not only refused the invitation, but had something even more terrible, it seems to me to say. President Mbeki has taken a side and they will not be participating in the dialogue. What's the reaction of the foundation to that?
No. We say as I'm saying, the dialogue as we framed it is to provide a platform for the Congolese to have a discussion amongst themselves and also educate those of us part of that. Having educated some of us, they will then be in a position to say, how do they propose that we intervene and assist them? Now, if the Congolese government think that they have a solution, they have solved the problem, then it's all right with them. But I think it will be a missed opportunity not to undertake this. Because let me tell you this, you will recall the Sun City Accord or the Sun City Agreement, which was actually a much more comprehensive dialogue about the situation in the Congo. And that Sun City Accord has completely unraveled. And the interesting thing is that during July this year, a new agreement has been signed between the Congo and. If you read that agreement and the Sun City Accord, they are exactly identical, except that the latest one has got 2 problematic areas. The fact that it is facilitated in the capitals outside of Africa, and which is one of the key issues as Africans we need to deal with, this issue of dignity, this issue of saying, let's find our own solutions to our own problems. So this one is done by the Americans and Doha. But the interesting thing is that its framing, it's not based on justice. It's not based on the interest of the people of the Congo. It's based on the America's interest on critical minerals in the Congo. So whatever happens amongst the Congolese, it's really not in the interest of America, as long as these trucks continue to move out of the Bukavu area, Eastern Congo, to ship out the minerals. And really, we think that's something that needs to be dealt with. The reason we say that some in the government of possible we have taken sides, we've always argued that the Congo problem, it's a Congolese problem. It's it's the unresolved issue of the national question. And because until the Congo solves this national question, we can blame everyone else in the world for that conflict. But we have to come back to that point of the Lumumbist to say must be resolved. In particular as the foundation that the Congo must know peace, because Congo is in the heart of our continent. It's almost impossible to speak about, because even the leadership of Congo will have to come back to this matter. And fortunately, federal engagements open to that, to hidden agenda. We've got nothing to benefit, but we cannot afford these Africans to disintegrate the way they are.
Speaking about peace and stability, Max, in China, the convergence around the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that ended with a demonstration of military force. Of course, the military parade is at the same time a celebration of 80 years of China's defeat of the Japanese, but it seems to be also around the conversations that happened where President Xi Jinping is saying there is a new world order. And everybody that gathered there are actors in the continent. They've got trade interest in the continent. They've got diplomatic interest in the continent. Vis-a-vis NATO, for an example, with the Americans, are we looking at the world that is popping up its military capabilities? And this conversation taking place here in Magaliesburg about Africa's stability, what are the implications of this phenomena of military reorganization, military realignment in the global system? The implications of that on the conversation you are having here about Africa's stability.
I think it's important, Mwiseni. Let's look, for instance, last year, when we talk about the Sahel, these military players are quite serious in that region. And the crisis that Africa has been facing is when we say the French troops must leave. And as the French troops are leaving, on the arrival side of the airport, the Russian troops are entering. And at the end of the day, the direction and the future of our continent is not in our hands. I think the time has come for us, South Africa, for Egypt, for Nigeria, for Ethiopia, for Algeria, for Ghana, and say these these 6 big countries of our continent, they actually need to come together and begin a conversation similar to the Shanghai conversation, because Ambassador Stites, the former US ambassador to Tanzania, made this point that a country like ours, meaning America, it will never take you serious unless you can demonstrate the ability to inflict the maximum American people and its interest. And that's what China was demonstrating. That's what North Korea demonstrates. That's what Russia demonstrates. That's why then we will negotiate with this. But because of the weakness of the continent, and told what to do, people are not saying they will negotiate with us. Countries which were in the forefront together, the AU and driving force behind NEPAD, they need to understand that the issue of military power is quite serious. And we can't say, even the crisis in Cabo Delgado, we must wait for the French troops to intervene in that area. I think it's critical that this conversation must take place.
Cabo Delgado, President Chisano last night intimated that the perception around Cabo Delgado's violence and instability being about Islam is completely misplaced. That the entire population in Mozambique, including Muslims, reject the idea that Cabo Delgado is in a crisis because of Islam. But he neglected to say what the problem could be caused by. I wonder if you could give us an idea from your critique and interaction, both here with the actors on that part of the Mozambican country, but in general. What are the causes of the problem in Cabo Delgado?
So we say, unfortunately, we're going to do a deep dive on this specific matter tomorrow, and with real serious actors from Mozambique, and a person like Dr. Augusto Zacharias, who's really a serious thinker and an actor in the politics of Mozambique, will be addressing this point. But you know, a few years ago, we did an analysis in the foundation when there were these new founds of gas in Mozambique, and say, if we are not careful, this is going to be another resource curse, because we have seen how these resources in the rest of the continent has led to particular conflict. And I think, for me, the first blame I will put squarely in the hands of Frelimo leadership, because they should have anticipated what would have happened. But you actually ended up with a leadership that was caught up in huge scandals, even around this issue. And then you ended up with all of the foreign interests that came into the space, and for the foreign interest to be able to benefit and exploit the newfound resources in Mozambique, instability becomes key, because proper governance, it looks like for these foreign countries, it's not profitable enough. For them to continue with super profits, you have to make sure that there's this ongoing instability. And I think mainly it's that economic interest. Now you're talking about the economic interest in an area that is hugely underdeveloped. So in the end, it's very easy to recruit even the ordinary population to be part of the violent activities that are taking place. But the point that President Chisano was making, it's not entirely 100% correct, because you've got the interventions by the groupings like the Al-Shabaabs in that region that have complicated the matter. But at the end of the day, that is a very, very important lesson in terms of how we lead these countries, in terms of how we manage resources. And I think really the instability and the corruption at the helm of the Frelimo leadership has compromised Mozambique.
And Cabo Delgado in particular.
But you will see that that situation has actually led to these very unstable elections that take place in Mozambique. I think as we speak today, Mozambique is broken. Not just Cabo Delgado, the entirety of Mozambique is broken. And part of the outcomes of this meeting, we were having some sessions yesterday with the Mozambicans, is that there has to be an inter-Mozambican dialogue to deal with the brokenness of Mozambique. It's no longer a Frelimo and Renamo on the other side. You've got a Frelimo that is disintegrated. You've got a Renamo that is disintegrated. You've got new leadership that pops up. But I think that inter-Mozambican dialogue will be very, very critical to re-establish both the political and the economic order in Mozambique.
Let me go to the headlines, Bramex. I do want to keep you maybe 5 minutes longer to pick up on this question of a dialogue. The foundation has been at the center of South Africa's own national dialogue, which has caused a lot of controversy in the country. But with your indulgence, I'll just like to go to the headlines quickly. Bantwana Benkosi, if you've just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Ndlozi. We are here in Magaliesburg at the Africa Peace and Stability Dialogue with the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. We're going to take quick headlines and come back, continue the conversation here at the headlines by Nhlanhla Sihume.
Thanks a lot, Doc. In stories making headlines, police have not ruled out further arrests following a shootout near the R21 in Kempton Park that left a suspected kingpin or kidnapping kingpin dead. The Mozambican national was wanted for his alleged involvement in multiple kidnapping for ransom cases in the country and in Mozambique, as well as other crimes including housebreaking, car hijacking and possession of unlicensed firearms. Now, this operation also led to the rescue of an Indian businessman who had been abducted from his Benoni business premises in July this year. Now, police located the victim in a shack in Alexandra and safely reunited him with his family. Speaking to journalists at the scene, SAP's spokesperson Atlenda Mate said the incident is believed to be part of a wider syndicate.
We cannot rule out the possibility of more arrests. We know that they do not work alone. You'll normally have your ringleaders, your spotters, those that will stay with the victim, the kidnapped victim, monitor him, feed him, and so on. So we are definitely working on a syndicate, a larger syndicate.
The DA in Gauteng says the province's centralization of food bank operations has worsened food insecurity across the province. The party argues that the current centralized model is ineffective and has failed to meet the needs of the vulnerable communities it was designed to serve. And finally, Portugal has declared a day of national mourning following a devastating funicular crash in Lisbon that has left at least 17 people dead and 21 others injured. Now, this accident occurred on Wednesday evening when one of the city's famous Elevador da Gloria funicular cars derailed and collided with a bus, or rather with a building. Emergency services confirmed that some foreign nationals were among the dead, though their identities and nationalities have not been released as yet. More details to follow in the news at midday.
Power 98.7 has signed a code of conduct enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under this code, we are committed to broadcast news that is accurate, comment that is fair, programming that is not harmful to children, and contains no gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, you may inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa by directing any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more information, please visit bccsa.co.za.
When that sale goes through, it makes it all worth it. Nedbank helps small businesses make those sales with same-day settlements, delivering a point of sale in 48 hours, self-service on the Money app, and up to 100% money back on your device after 3 months. It's more than a point of sale. It's the point of connection. It's the point of success. It's the point of everything. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Do you know what's hiding behind colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org by 30 September.
Stay informed. Power Talk with Ndlozi, 9 a.m. to midday on Power 98.7.
Welcome back, Bantwana Benkosi. We are still with the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, broadcasting live from Magaliesburg at the Peace Dialogue, Peace and Stability Dialogue by the Foundation, hosted right here with a lot of delegates from across Southern Africa, Mozambique, and the DRC are occupying the center of the conversation. And Pramex, you were speaking about dialogues. Indeed, one of the eminent persons that is here is the former president of Mauritius, and he was indicating last night in his remarks this question of dialogue that the Mozambicans themselves have, in the name of the president, initiated, that they've got to speak, they've got to enter into a national dialogue, particularly following the unstable elections that they just came from. He spoke about as well the Congolese themselves having to enter into a national dialogue. And we've got our own national dialogue here. I wonder if I could put two sharp questions to you about that national dialogue. Firstly, it's the growing concern expressed by some opposition leaders and opposition parties that this is the ANC trying to recover credibility, use the platform for 2026 elections. Could this have been what caused the foundation's own frustration with the National Convention or the UNISA gathering?
Let's put some of these things in context. I think the issue of national dialogue, there is no option for this country, but it must have the national dialogue. There is a pending political vacuum in South Africa. Everybody is telling you that the ANC will be less than 30%. You're going to have a country with a center that's not holding. And the welfare in a center that's not holding, the only organized group is the group of that will occupy the center. And this is exactly the same situation we were dealing with in Sudan, Khartoum. When this level of uncertainty politically, we said, no, but the Sudanese have to get into a process of national dialogue. And it's no use to say, no, we'll have a revolution, we'll occupy the squares and go and take over Khartoum. And when that proposition was rejected and it failed, indeed, people occupied the squares in Khartoum. But the most powerful people in Sudan were people with guns. And that's why today, Sudan doesn't exist as a country. It's in the hands of those that have got guns. It's exactly the similar experience we were talking about with EPRDF in Ethiopia. And say there's a murmurings of disintegration in Ethiopia. And it's important that when President Haile Mariam says, no, I can no longer lead EPRDF and Ethiopia, possible this issue of a national dialogue and say, how do we rebuild Ethiopia? And that project failed. And we saw the biggest slaughter amongst the Ethiopians when you had the federal government and Tigray doing what they were doing. Problem with South Africans, we always have this attitude that the settlers have told us here at home that we're somehow special. We are not. So if you look at that, at those two examples, it's not far-fetched that you can meet something like this in South Africa. The July 2021 is an example, it's a foretaste of what I'm talking about. Because here were people with guns. There was nothing we could do about our army couldn't do anything, our police couldn't do anything, our intelligence couldn't do anything. So it's critical, therefore, that the South Africans, in their numbers, should be able to be involved in a conversation about this South Africa, which many people are having lots of complaints about, and about a South Africa that they want. So coming back to the ANC, I don't think the ANC has put together a group of proper thinking people about this issue of the national dialogue. If I was part of the ANC's thinking group, I will recall what Moses Kotane said in 1951 when he was saying the ANC is dead. And we needed to find the ways in terms of how you then raise the ANC from the dead. So that's why then around the defense campaign in 1952, Z.K. Matthews proposed this idea of a national dialogue, which translated into the works that went around the country in 1955. Because by that time, you had no formidable ANC to talk of. You had no comprehensive program to follow. But what then the ANC of that time did was, when the meeting in Cape Town consolidated all of these views, the following year, the ANC was able in its conference to adopt all of those people's views as its own program. And that thing did two things for the ANC. It revealed a number of inspirational leaders, because you saw those inspirational leaders during the first treason trial of 156 leaders. And the entire country was able to say, actually, these are our leaders. And secondly, the country could say, this is our program for liberation, which is the Freedom Charter. So Mbuyiseni was sitting here today. Our country is facing serious political and economic crisis, even the foreign relations. You and I cannot pick up any comprehensive document, a comprehensive plan in terms of how are we going to solve South Africa's intractable problems. It doesn't come from the ANC, it's not coming from the GNU. And that's why we thought people are sovereign. And this answer to the challenges that people are facing will come from the people. And people keep on thinking this is really about political polemics. So we were meeting with some scientists, for instance, on this thing of national dialogue. So these are nuclear physicists. They say, but we can work comprehensively to solve the electricity problem in South Africa. We can work in a way that will make sure that electricity is cheap in the country, and in a way strategically to deepen the program of industrialization. So I'm saying, but that conversation, you don't find it anywhere in those that are governing us. But it's everywhere amongst this class of South Africans that are interested. So the point I'm making is the only way the ANC can win the local government elections is not to use the national dialogue, is in the municipalities, which is almost 80% of the municipalities in the country that it controls, is to deliver services in those municipalities, is to chase away criminals and thieves that are pretending to be political leaders. That's all it has to do. It doesn't have to take a national dialogue. I suspect, though, that the problem with the UNISA Convention, it's really a problem of lack of understanding. It's a complete lack of understanding of what it's supposed to be. but it's also the painful thing that has happened in our country, Mboiseni, where this anti-thinking attitude has really immersed itself in the leadership, whether you're talking government, even when you're talking to universities today. Because it's supposed to be a platform where we think very seriously about the country. So in the end, I think it's either that lack of understanding or the work of evil people. People that understand that our country is on its knees, but they are not prepared to allow this country to stand up. And they will do everything to make sure that it collapses. It will collapse so that we can produce a country that is in the hands, on the one hand, of private capital, or in the hands of NGOs, or in the hands of criminals.
That is a very comprehensive announcement of doomsday, of a future that I don't think a lot of people appreciate. But maybe indeed the ANC is as disorganized as you are to even think and plan about the national dialogue. But then many South Africans, Bramex, feel like President Mbeki is trying to have us speak, and speaking has never resulted into any change. This agitation that we get in a room, but outcomes are always not in such a way that they shift the fortunes of South Africa. So this description you are giving, that if we don't get in a room as a country under one roof and speak, many people don't feel like it will change the direction of the country. It will change the price of electricity or the very access to electricity. They don't feel like it will even change the texture of politicians who see government as just a form of self-enrichment. Why does the foundation hold a different view at all?
The struggle against apartheid was a long, arduous struggle. And there are people that must have died in the 20s and saying, no, the freedom is coming. And there must have been others in the 30s, etc., etc. But in the end, the countries are going to live for a very, very long time. You cannot design and imagine a country that is just living for the next 2 years. So to say the conversations and the dialogues changed nothing, the product which I spoke to you about the Freedom Charter was actually a product of conversation. And it was not a conversation on one day, it was a conversation over a long period of time. The product that produced the constitution that we have, it was a process of a dialogue. Discussion started way back in 1984-85 that culminated into a new constitution in 1996, almost 11 years later. But if you look at South Africa today, the wheels are loose. So there's two options. We shoot at each other or we talk with one another. And I think for us, this insistence is that we believe in the sovereignty of the people. We believe that the greater ideas will actually come from the people. And I think we mustn't undermine the fact that there are many people that are doing wonderful things in the country. And I think we need to bring all of these things back to the center and look for a country that is functioning.
Dr. Max Pokwana, the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, thanks very much for creating time to speak to us here on Power Talk.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take a quick break, Bantwana Benkosi, and continue thereafter with our favorite analyst, Dr. Ambassador Kings Makubela. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
South Africa. Well, it has been going very well, Dr. Ndlozi. One that is becoming Lamola.
Yes.
Non-allied.
Yes.
Non-allied. You know, Dr. Ndlozi, in 2010, China elevated its relationship called a diplomatic status to strategic partnership. In 2024, China again in what they call all-round strategic cooperation partnership in a new era. And no one has been able to unpack what is this new era. Cooperation organization. This new order and new era, and what does it mean? And what does it mean for South Africa? International law that exists now, that we're talking about based, you know, pushing for what is called and parochial, a very condescending rule. It has to do also with extraterritoriality. These are the challenges that I think during the course of this.
Imagine, because South Africa and certainly the continent, not to be attaining a unique voice. Also had a long conversation with the minister. I'm told even the state missions continent, it's not a very desirable one. But he's to marshal the continent. They come on the international system to say interest to Donald Trump. This is Africa's interest, to the Europeans, the French, as well as the Chinese and the Russians. Rate of South Africa's foreign missions in the continent, employments or ambassadors. That includes countries like Nigeria that are of significance. How do you rate South Africa becoming the center of gravity for the continent to coalesce around it, to define Africa's interest?
You know, Dr. Ndlozi, all these things are happening. Turbulence, there are changes that are happening, and absence of high representation of South African voice. That's why who ought to add this voice. Changing world dynamics. The biggest debate that is going on around the world is around unipolarity and multipolarity. Salient issues that are contained in this multipolarity, what are the sources of new power that are, and to be able to have your diplomatic representation beefed up. It's certainly ambassadors are the master key to have access. Junior people want to find it's a downgrade of diplomatic mission access. So it's the diplomatic statecraft.
With regards to the fact that we're not going to choose the West, or useful those concepts are, because if the world is changing, anticipating that there'll be two strong powers, meaning two strong. Already, the Soviet Union was against the alliance of the West, NATO. And within that were strong United States, Britain, India and China becoming a single force alliance. Why is it a multipolar world that we are anticipating and not
States on one hand and India on the one hand? It means you are going to have the two that are going to be but the debate now, Dr. Ndlozi, ought to go the sources of power. Sources of power in the New World Order cannot continue to be military and economic to exercise their power. There are new sources of power that are starting to emerge: uranium, global uranium. They are not coming hard on the Namibia. So we need a definition of this new source of power.
But what would stop them from take advantage? Americans have in the past launched proxy wars just to get oil. Why? Because it has 11% from a security destabilization, precisely Cabo Delgado.
I mean, the Americans will do that if the sources, this the uranium does not flow, if the logistics are interrupted. That if the logistics and the flow of uranium uninterrupted. Once you start to interrupt that, you'd have challenges. That's why
but that can be always, Africa says it wants to. It would provoke the US if they wanted to local beneficiate, if they wanted to include in their trade direction the East. It would certainly invite some form of military capability interest.
You know, the military capability parades, which responds to NATO's idea that goes towards military and security. It's a concept where you actually prepare your military. At some point, you get a small provocation. You get attacked. You remember, perhaps the Soviet Union, April Fool. It really created a very serious. So you in where the security dilemma is so high, provocation, and now with the invent of fake news and deep fake, you're gonna have serious.
We're hoping to hear more about some of the discussions that are taking 100 hours. Thanks very much, Ambassador, and stay tuned for Kwena with Khalisberg at the Dialogue on Peace.